Prize Picks, run your game when you want. So, guys, there's an interesting trend with the Cleveland Browns dating back to 2018.
By the way, before you finish the thought, I got to just say, my wife reminded me recently of when I was dressed for Halloween last year and I was wearing a mullet and like an undershirt, and we had Mary Kay on, and she had a hard time answering any questions because I looked so ridiculous.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel with Mike right now. It's hard to take him seriously with that ridiculous mustache.
I've stopped looking
at it. It's hard. Every time he talks, I'm like, look at this freaking mustache. It's absurd.
It'll be gone tomorrow.
It's Bobby Valentine. It's Bobby Valentine.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
So there is an interesting trend that I found on Twitter that I went and researched and confirmed. But, Steve, you take this full here. If you look at the last, or not the last, but 6 of the last Browns coaches, they have all been fired following losses to Pittsburgh. Romeo Crennel in 2008, Eric Mangini in 2010, Pat Shurmur in 2012, Chudzinski in 2013, Mike Pettin in 2015, and Hugh Jackson in 2018. They all lost following a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Outside of Hugh Jackson, weren't all the rest of them the last game of the year?
Some of them were, yes.
Oh, not all of them?
Not all of them, no, but some of them were.
All right.
So that then sparked a question in yesterday's media availability to Kevin Stefanski just about whether he hears any of the noise about him potentially being on the hot seat, this trend with the Cleveland Browns and head coaches after playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, etc. Here's the question and the answer from Kevin Stefanski, courtesy of the Browns.
You grew up listening to WIP.
610 WIP.
You're 2-8. Your name's shown up on hot seat lists in the media. How do you feel going into this stretch, Pittsburgh, Denver, Pittsburgh?
I think probably because I grew up listening to that, I'm smart enough to not worry about outside noise. I get that's part of this gig. That's life in the big city. My sole focus is getting this team ready to get a win on Thursday night. That's it.
So, A, do you buy the fact Kevin Stefanski completely blocks out all the outside noise? And 2, Bull, if he loses to the Steelers on Thursday, could that be the last we see of Kevin Stefanski on the Browns sideline as a head coach?
I'd be surprised if they fire him midseason. I guess anything's possible, but I'd be surprised if they fire him even if they lose this week. Am I buying that it doesn't affect him? Of course it affects him. Whenever I said before, I don't care when people say fat stuff about me anymore. I'm kind of used to it. And that's 99% true, but there's always going to be a little part of you that's bothered by anything negative. Sure, but you mostly deal with it and it mostly doesn't matter. And he's probably the same. He gets it. Now, in his case, if he got fired, he's still getting paid. He's got guaranteed money for however many years they signed him to extension, so he's fine. I know Jason and Ben Axelrod seem to think he's going to get a job in 2 seconds. I'm not as convinced as they are. But maybe. So, yeah, but there's nobody's immune to it. I don't believe that. I'm not saying he's panicking about it, but I don't think anybody's immune to what's going on around them. I don't buy that at all.
He's well aware. You know what it is.
He's aware.
He's well aware.
There's look, he's a smart guy. He knows what his record is.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody to tell you that at 2-8, I don't care if you're a 5-time NFL Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
At 2-8, when you've underachieved as massively as this team has, and your career record now is hovering above 500 by 1 game, and I know we show the 1-2 playoff record, he's 0-2. I don't give him the playoff win. I don't give him credit for that. He wasn't on the sidelines. He wasn't calling plays. I'm sorry. I just don't. It was his team.
Right.
But it wasn't.
He didn't coach the game.
He wasn't there. How can you get a win for something when you're not even in the building? So I don't give him credit for that. He's 1 game over 500 as a body of work. He knows what time it is, but I also think he is smart enough to not worry about that. You can't change that. That's hay that's in the barn.
Right.
What you can do is get your team ready to play against Pittsburgh, and Kevin is doing exactly that. Can he lose his job? If they show lack of effort tomorrow night and they are blown out by Pittsburgh, I think it is a very real possibility that he loses his job.
Yep.
And the reason there may be more urgency for Jimmy Haslam to act now is because who's in the wings. Every offseason, there's between 7 and 9 NFL jobs that come open on Black Monday, which is the day after the season ends. And these coaches get their walking papers. Kevin Stefanski will absolutely be in line for one of those 7 to 9 jobs.
Yep.
He will be. He's going to be hired by someone in the NFL. And quite frankly, I think he can do a wonderful job if he gets to a team that isn't toxic, like this team. But Jimmy might fire him if he sees lack of effort and a blowout, because the last 6 coaches Jimmy has fired, or not Jimmy, that the organization has fired, have been fired after losses to Pittsburgh. So maybe it is Jimmy. I don't know if Jimmy's fired all 6 of those or not.
When did Jimmy take over?
10. Is this 11 years?
12th year, right?
12?
So that would have been 2012.
2012,
so no, not
yeah.
all of them.
So 4 or 5 of them
Yes.
have been fired after Pittsburgh losses.
Correct.
So, yeah, it's a distinct possibility. And also, it's because Mike Vrabel is also going to be a leading candidate for those 7 to 9 jobs in early January. And you might want to beat the rush, and you can name Mike the interim head coach if you fire Kevin Stefanski. And you can even do a deal with him immediately where he's not just the interim.
He's the regular
You say
coach.
today we fired Kevin Stefanski, and for the next 4 years we'll again be paying 2 head coaches.
Yeah.
We'll be paying Kevin Stefanski to do nothing, and we'll be paying Mike Vrabel because we have named and signed him to a contract extension. So there might be some urgency to get that done so he doesn't get off to another
Now,
team.
to be fair, Mike Vrabel's coaching record is not amazing. It's better than Kevin
Very
Stefanski.
similar to Kevin Stefanski.
He's 9 games over 500,
Yes,
which
very-
was what Stefanski was coming into the season.
Right.
And
Life comes at you quick.
And he's 2-3 in playoffs. It's an odd picture. And he had some teams that did really well in the regular season and then flamed out in the playoffs.
Yes, very similar to
So-
Kevin Stefanski's body of work.
Here's why those Steeler games are usually the graveyard of head coaches. First and foremost, the Cleveland Browns are measured against 2 organizations. The old Cleveland Browns, which are the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the Pittsburgh Steelers, year after year, it doesn't matter who the heck they play, who's at quarterback, they always have a certain floor. The Cleveland Browns have no floor.
And that floor is 500.
That floor is 500. The Browns have no floor. We could go from Super Bowl contending team to 2 and something. And when you're the owner and you happen
or 0 and something.
and you happen to be we're around that organization and a part owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's the equivalent of your brother embarrassing you at the family reunion. Mm-hmm. And no rich person wants to be embarrassed. As a person, these guys' egos are out the wazoo. These are the 32 most important, or not the most important, but the biggest jobs and businesses in the world. And you can't even buy your way into one just because you got money. You got to be invited, and everybody got to vote on it. So when you get embarrassed at the family reunion by your cousin or your brother, your heads are going to roll when you get back home.
And he used to work in
And
there.
he used to
was a part
live
owner.
there. He was a part owner. So if they come out here and look bad, they come out here and look disinterested, they come out here and have a bunch of penalties, they get blown out. And the third thing that hits him in the face was, why is it that we don't talk about this? The first person who had the worst contract in the history of mankind and the team had to pay to get rid of them was Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
They took the worst contract in history that we thought it's the worst contract we've ever seen. And you know what they did? They put them right in there with after a retread with Justin Fields, who also played well for them and had a record that looked better than the Browns did. And they turned their reclamation project into
8-2.
8-2.
Looking at home field.
And now we get the second worst contract in the history of mankind. And we turn our 11-win team first round playoff to 2-8. So it's staring you right in the face like, hey, they make a move, everything turns to gold. We make a move, and it's just, ain't it funny? 2-8 and 8-2. The exact opposite of your twinning. And that's the reason people get mad and people get fired after the Pittsburgh Steelers game, because Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter.
Last 58 matchups. How many wins do the Browns have? Last 58 times they've played.
I'd say it's in the teens.
58, 6.
No, it's not that
Not
bad.
quite that bad. The Browns are up. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm going to talk this out loud. I made a Mike Tomlin bio graphic, and Tomlin's only lost 6 times to the Browns since he's been the head coach. So he's been the head coach since 2000 and was it 8, right? 2008, 2007?
Something like that.
I'm going to guess 12, Bull. 12.
Close. 11, 46, and 1 tie.
So what's the damning thing about
matches.
that is it's not just any team.
Right.
It's the hated team.
Right.
And so when you are, and we are the antithesis of them. They're always good, always buttoned up, getting more out of players than they should, and we are always bad, never making and winning playoff games, and getting less out of our stars than we should.
Right.
We are the antithesis of our rival. And the owner is shooting blanks trying to fix it. Like, okay, fire Stefanski. Stefanski, in my opinion, will go on to another organization and have wild success. We've seen that movie before. But
Well,
it's
have
not
we?
well, with Belichick. And I
that's
know that
not
was
fair.
not Jimmy,
He
but
didn't get fired.
We mean Cleveland fans. We
Yeah,
have
right.
seen
Okay,
that
yeah,
before.
yeah.
We have seen players leave here because they're told you're not wanted, you're not good, and go on and have success in other places. We're used to all of that. But this is why I've lost hope. We've done this wash, rinse, repeat with this owner 4 times.
Yeah.
He's never gotten it right. And even when we thought he got it right, it was still screwed up by outside forces. Maybe that outside force is you saying we need to get Deshaun Watson. At all cost, we need to get him in here. That imploded your franchise and set it back a minimum of 5 years, possibly longer. First round draft pick currency, I don't care where you're picking in the first round, you can't go without that for 3 years and have any kind of success unless you're the St. Louis Rams and you're hitting on 3rd rounders like Williams and 5th rounders like Nakua.
No, I don't.
Well, that's currency. That's how you stay.
If Watson had been what we thought he was going to be, then it would have been fine. They would have been worth it.
Bull, that's a
it.
huge if. But now let me ask you.
It didn't seem like a huge if
watch,
at the time.
I'll counter that by saying this. Is the quarterback the only problem with this team? Our quarterback threw for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. We scored 14 points and lost by 3 touchdowns.
We
are deficient. I know, but what I'm saying to that is, we are deficient in a lot of other areas because we have been 3 years without a first-round draft pick.
But none of us were saying that last year when they won a ton of games with no quarterback.
You know what? I wasn't either. We were fooling ourselves.
Well, I think the reality of the Browns is not as good as it was last year and not as bad as it is this year. It's probably somewhere in between. The bottom line is, it's not just that you lost. That's a big part of it, giving up the 3 first-round picks. The biggest part of it is that you got the wrong guy. I believe with zero doubt in my mind that if Deshaun Watson had been the player that most of us thought he would be, the player that he was in Houston, the 3 first-round picks wouldn't have mattered. But it's the combination of the two, him being the worst quarterback in the NFL and wasting those picks, that makes it a disaster.
But you got to go back to the start of it. You went 1-31, and there are 2 Hall of Famers in that same draft class. You chose Baker.
Yeah.
Now Baker's playing well and he's good, but you missed
not Josh Allen.
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and those guys are in your division. When you miss their
conference, one in the division.
If you miss there, it's done.
It's hard to overcome that.
You're not coming back from that. So the 3 first-round picks that you get Deshaun Watson is predicated on the fact that you missed once and was trying to salvage the miss.
I'm not even so sure they missed by drafting Baker. They could have done better by drafting Josh. I'll give you that. I don't think it was a miss by drafting Baker.
We'll never know.
Listen.
We'll never know if he would have turned his career around had he stayed here.
But 2 years into his career, he's got the team in the playoffs. 2 years later, he's gone. The miss to me wasn't drafting him. It was giving up on him after he was trying to play through an injury, and you just washed the slate.
It wasn't that, Jay. There was more to it than that.
I don't think there was.
He was turning the ball over more than any quarterback in the league. That's a problem.
Could you give any of that to an injury?
It's not just that year. His whole career, he'd been turnover prone.
Listen, he is a turnover machine.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You that.
He doesn't
is he still leading the NFL in touchdown passes?
He's not.
He's
but
third.
He's up there.
And he's doing it. He's lost his 2 best receivers that are Pro Bowl receivers, his numbers, even without Evans and
I'm
Godwin,
not arguing
have
with you.
been good.
But
So
he
now
never played anywhere. He didn't play at this level ever here. Not this level.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he broke the record for most touchdowns by a rookie.
So
No?
what I'm saying
By a rookie.
What-
So-
Every quarterback that's in
But
the
he-
league right now was a rookie at
You
one
don't
point.
disagree. You don't agree that he's playing much better now than he ever played here?
Bull, listen, I was driving the Baker train.
I don't.
I don't think we should have gotten rid of him.
That's fair, but you have to admit he's
I
playing much better
saw
now.
the level of play that he is playing at more consistently
Okay,
now.
well, let me
I
ask you-
saw glimpses of that then.
Well, let me
It was
ask-
early in his
hold on,
career.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this.
But you can see glimpses of it from anybody.
Let me ask you this, and just as a simple question: knowing what you know today, if you had to draft over again, would you take Baker Mayfield over Josh
No,
Allen?
no,
over
no, no,
Monte?
no, no,
of
no.
course
No, I'm
not.
not making that case.
No.
Well, I mean that's the only thing I'm saying.
But you said it was a miss. So
That
if-
is- that classifies as a miss if you
here's
coulda took him.
There's hits, there's misses, but if a miss is a strikeout and a hit is a home run, there's also a triple. And you can win with triples. And so a miss to me would have been like, oh my God, a miss is Deshaun
I think
Watson. That's a miss.
Relitigating the Baker thing at this point is silly. We've been over it a
It
million
is,
times.
because I think
they felt like, I know I personally watching, I felt like you can't win a Super Bowl with Baker. Now the game has changed again a little bit.
Yes.
That maybe you can win with a little. I still don't trust Baker in a big game.
I know you don't.
In a big spot. I think
and
he's
there's
got
reason
more to
for
prove,
that.
and part of that is because he turns the ball over.
But the reason there's no
But he's
litigating it
He's
is
played
because
well. I'm
if
not
you-
denying that.
I think if the question, if you want to go back to the draft, you can do that. But there's also this question.
Yeah.
Gun to head. You have that decision to make over again. And the decision is this. Because they moved on from Baker only because they brought Deshaun into the fold. That's
Right.
it. So if you could go back in time, this is not even a question. 1,000 fair-minded and straight-thinking fans will tell you they bet on the wrong horse.
Of course, nobody's
So
denying
that's
that
my
now.
point. So
what's the Browns' record with Baker right
The
now?
reason I don't know, and I don't even, that's
Not
a game we
good.
can play with
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes. They're probably 5-5.
I know,
With
but
Baker, they're better than 2-8. I don't know what they are.
are they?
But
I
here's
don't
the
know.
thing.
Maybe one game better.
I'm trying to do this
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah.
This is the same organization that said, yeah, Baker out, Deshaun in. Wrong. Definitively wrong. Everybody admits it was
fair,
wrong.
but I
So
think most. But
can't-
Jay, I think most teams would have. I think every team in the league would have done the same thing.
I disagree with that.
All right.
I saw the Bengals stay pat with Andy Dalton for a long time. Look, I know
They
the
never had a
ultimate
chance
goal-
to get a player of
I know the
Deshaun
ultimate
Watson's
goal-
caliber.
Yeah, but Bull, I get that, but
And they were wrong to stay with Andy Dalton. They never won a playoff
Baker's
game.
third in the league right now in touchdown passes.
My
understand that.
whole premise is the same guys that are here, they made multiple wrong choices at quarterbacks.
And that's why that's my point. And so
That's
my
it.
point is,
Multiple.
and coaches and general managers.
Multiple.
So I'm supposed to
Yeah.
bank on them getting it right
Of
again?
course not. Who
no,
could?
I have
Yeah, that
zero
was multiple.
faith they
Multiple.
will get it right the fifth time they do it. And that's why it's so frustrating as a Browns fan, because usually there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't see
Doesn't
it.
feel like there is one.
I think they've killed the power. There's no light. There's a train coming, and
Yeah.
it's blocking out all the light.
Yeah.
And there's going to be another wash, rinse, repeat at the end of this year, or maybe Friday morning. I don't know. It's coming.
Yeah.
Brace for it. It's coming.
And yeah, there's-
and then will they get it right this time?
I mean,
Here's the one
you're
thing
gonna
I hope
bet-
they
you're
do.
gonna bet no.
Get Paul DePodesta out of the organization, and then I'll think you have a chance. Because I think we lost Dorsey because Paul DePodesta won the power struggle.
In fairness, I think Dorsey hiring Freddie Kitchens did it to himself, unfortunately.
I think so, but when Dorsey is trying to throw Paul DePodesta
Yeah, that
out
was
of
an issue.
meetings,
Yeah.
and the Browns are Paul DePodesta
I'd rather
has
have
won the
Dorsey
power
now
struggle.
than DePodesta.
Oh my God, that's the extent. I would give me Dorsey and Baker, and I like where we are. Instead, we have Paul DePodesta and Deshaun Watson.